I didn't take the DNA test because I was searching for something. I took it because everyone else was doing it. That's how it started. Not with drama. Not with suspicion. Not with secrets. Just curiosity. My grandma had always told us we were mostly Irish. My dad swore there was some German in there. My cousin Ashley was convinced we had Native American ancestry because of some story passed down at Thanksgiving. It was the kind of family folklore you laugh about. So when the holiday discounts hit and those ancestry kits were basically half off, I ordered one without thinking twice.
Spit in a tube.
Seal the box. Drop it at UPS.
Done.
I didn't expect anything life-changing. 6 weeks later, I was on my couch in sweatpants when the email came through. Your DNA results are ready. I almost ignored it. Instead, I opened the app. The percentages loaded first. British and Irish. Some Scandinavian. A little bit of Eastern European.
Cool.
Normal. Exactly what I expected. Then I scrolled down. And that's when everything shifted. Under DNA matches, there was a name I didn't recognize. Daniel M. Relationship. First cousin. Shared DNA. 12%. I blinked. That had to be wrong. I know my first cousins. There are 6 of them. I grew up with them. Birthday parties. Summer cookouts. Christmas mornings at Grandma's house. There is no Daniel. I refreshed the page. Still there. I clicked his profile. Minimal info. Joined recently. No profile picture. Just one short bio line. Looking to learn more about my biological family. My stomach dropped. Biological family? I stared at the screen for a long time. Long enough for the room to feel smaller. I texted my mom. Hey, random question, do we have a cousin named Daniel? It took 2 minutes for the 3 dots to appear. They disappeared. Then reappeared. Then disappeared again. She didn't text back. She called me. That's when I knew. My mom does not call unless something's wrong. Her voice sounded tight, like she was bracing herself. Where did you hear that name? I told her about the DNA test. There was a long pause. Not the normal kind. The heavy kind. The kind where you can almost hear someone deciding how much of the truth you're allowed to handle. She exhaled slowly. You weren't supposed to find out like this. My chest felt hollow. Find out what? She told me to come over. Not something you say casually at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. But I grabbed my keys anyway. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than usual. Every red light felt intentional, like the universe was stretching out the suspense. When I walked in, my dad was already sitting at the kitchen table. Arms folded. Not angry, just guarded. My mom poured me a glass of water, like she was about to deliver bad medical news. She sat down across from me. And then she said it. When your uncle was 17, he got a girl pregnant. The words didn't hit right away. My brain needed a second to process them. My uncle? The same uncle who coached Little League. The same uncle who grills at every 4th of July. The same uncle whose house we go to every Thanksgiving? Yes, my dad said quietly. That uncle. They told me it was early 1970s. Small town. Very religious family. Reputation mattered more than feelings. The girl got pregnant. Both families panicked. There were whispers. Judgment.
Shame.
The baby was born.
A boy.
And then, he was given up for adoption. Closed adoption. No contact. No updates. No photos. Just paperwork and silence. My uncle went off to college a year later. Met his future wife. Started over. And the family agreed never to talk about it again. Like it never happened. Like that baby had never existed. I sat there trying to picture it. Trying to imagine my uncle as a scared teenager holding a newborn he would never see again. Trying to imagine the decision. Trying to imagine the girl. Trying to imagine the baby. Daniel. So, everyone knows? I asked. My mom shook her head. Just the adults back then.
Me.
Your dad. Your aunt. Your grandparents. That's it. My cousins don't know. His wife doesn't know. No one else. My brain struggled to keep up. You're telling me I have a cousin out there. A first cousin. And nobody told us? My dad leaned forward. It wasn't our secret to tell. That sentence stuck. Not our secret to tell. Then why did I feel like I was carrying it? When I got home that night, I opened the app again. Daniel had logged in recently. I stared at his profile photo slot.
Blank.
But he wasn't blank. He was a person. Somewhere out there was a man who shared my blood, who had grown up without knowing us, who probably spent years wondering where he came from. And now technology did what decades of silence couldn't. It connected us, whether anyone liked it or not. I hovered over the message button. I didn't click it.
Not yet.
Because once I did, there would be no going back. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about my cousins, about family dinners, about how normal everything felt, and how fragile that normal suddenly was. They have a brother. They just don't know it. And now I do. And somehow that feels like a burden I never signed up for. The next morning, my mom texted, "Please don't reach out to him." No explanation.
Just that.
And that's when the real conflict started. Because part of me understood. But another part kept hearing one sentence in my head. He's looking for his biological family. And we are it. I didn't message Daniel. Not that night. Not the next morning. But I also didn't delete the app. I checked it. More than I should have. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach tightened. 3 days passed. Then a notification popped up while I was at work. "You have a new message." My hands actually went cold. It was him. Daniel. The message was short.
Hey.
I know this might be awkward. I'm not trying to cause problems. I just saw we're listed as first cousins. I was adopted at birth. I've been trying to piece things together. If you're open to talking, I'd appreciate it. No drama. No anger. No accusations. Just calm.
Careful.
Respectful. And somehow that made it worse. Because it meant he wasn't reckless. He wasn't trying to blow anything up. He just wanted answers. And I had them. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I called my mom again. She picked up on the first ring. "You heard from him, didn't you?" I didn't even ask how she knew. "Yes." Silence. Then she said, "Your uncle doesn't want contact." That sentence landed differently this time. Not can't. Not isn't ready. Doesn't want. Does he know about the DNA match? I asked. Another pause. He does now. My heart dropped. Apparently, my mom had already warned him. She told him DNA testing is everywhere now. That it was only a matter of time. He didn't yell. He didn't panic. He just said, "I'll deal with it later." Later. I hate that word now. That weekend, there was a family cookout. One of those last warm Saturdays before fall sets in. Normally, I love those days. Kids running around. Music playing. Uncle manning the grill, like he owns the world. But this time felt different. I watched him. Every laugh. Every smile. Every casual conversation. I kept thinking, you have a son out there. He looks older now. Thinner. Gray at the temples. Time hasn't slowed down for him. And somewhere, there's another man with some of those same features. Maybe the same jawline. Same eyes. Same crooked smile. Does he ever think about him? Or did he train himself not to? At one point, I ended up alone with him near the cooler. It wasn't planned. It just happened. He handed me a soda. "Your mom told me about the test," he said casually. Too casually. I nodded. He didn't look at me. Just stared out at the yard. "Technology's wild now, huh?" he added. That was it. No apology. No emotion. Just a comment about technology. I waited. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a crack in his voice. Maybe regret. Maybe even anger. Nothing. "I'm not trying to cause problems," he continued. What happened back then, it was complicated. Complicated. That word again. As if complicated erases a human being. He finally looked at me. "Don't respond to him. Not please. Not I'm asking you. Just don't." Like it was a rule. Like I was a child. I felt something shift inside me. Because suddenly this wasn't about protecting the family. It felt like protecting comfort. His comfort. That night, Daniel messaged again. "If I'm misunderstanding the match, I apologize. I just don't have much information. My adoption was closed. I've always wondered who my father was. Father. He used the word father. Not biological contributor. Not donor. Father. I stared at the screen for a long time. My uncle told me not to respond. My mom asked me not to respond. But Daniel wasn't asking for money. Or confrontation. Or revenge. He just wanted to know who he came from. Is that really so wrong? I clicked on his profile again. This time there was a picture. He must have updated it. It wasn't a high-quality photo. Just a casual selfie. But my breath caught. He had my uncle's eyes. It wasn't subtle. Same shape. Same slight downturn at the corners. Same expression. I felt dizzy. DNA isn't just numbers on a screen. It's a mirror. And he was staring right back at us. Monday morning, I finally responded. I kept it simple.
Hi.
I think we are related. I just found out about this myself. I'm still processing everything. I didn't say who his father was. I didn't confirm anything, but I didn't deny it either. He replied within minutes. Thank you. That means a lot. That line broke something in me, because it was so small, so grateful, so undeserving of the silence he'd gotten for decades. Later that week, my uncle called me. Not angry, but firm. I heard you replied. Word travels fast in families. I didn't give him details, I said. That's not the point. There was tension in his voice now. You don't understand what that time was like. You don't understand the pressure. The shame. I listened. I really did. But shame doesn't disappear just because you stop talking about it. It just transfers. To someone else. To a kid who grows up wondering why he wasn't kept. Then he said something that changed everything. I was going to reach out when I turn 80. 80. He's 74 now. 6 more years. 6 more years of waiting. 6 more years of silence. Why 80? I asked quietly. He didn't answer directly. By then, most of the people who cared about appearances will be gone. Appearances. So this was about image. Not healing. Not closure. Not reconciliation. Reputation. Even now. That night, Daniel sent another message. Can I ask you something? Does my biological father know I exist? I stared at that question for a full 5 minutes. Does he know I exist? Imagine carrying that question your entire life. And imagine knowing the answer.
Yes.
He knows. He just doesn't want to deal with it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Because whatever I typed next would shift everything. I stared at Daniel's message for almost 10 minutes. Does my biological father know I exist? That question felt heavier than anything he'd asked before. Because this wasn't about curiosity anymore. It was about rejection. If I said no, I'd be lying. If I said yes, I'd be confirming something that could hurt him in a way I couldn't undo. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I finally typed,
Yes.
He knows. I didn't add anything else. No explanation. No defense. No context. Just the truth. 3 words. He didn't reply right away. That was worse. An hour passed.
2.
Then finally, has he ever wanted to meet me? I closed my eyes. There it was. The real question. Not does he know, but does he care? And I didn't have a gentle version of that answer.
Because the truth is messy.
The truth is selfish. The truth is that my uncle built an entire life pretending Daniel was just a mistake that got sealed in paperwork. I typed slowly.
Carefully.
It's complicated. He was very young. It was a different time. As soon as I hit send, I hated it. Because I sounded like everyone else. Defending the silence. Defending the past. Defending comfort. He responded almost instantly.
Yeah.
I figured. That I figured hit harder than anger ever could. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about him. About growing up without answers. About filling in blanks with guesses. About looking in the mirror and wondering where certain features came from. I've never questioned my identity.
I've never had to. He has.
Every single day of his life. 2 days later, something shifted inside the family. My aunt, My uncle's wife texted me, which is rare. We're close, but she doesn't randomly check in. Hey, sweetheart, random question, have you talked to your uncle about that DNA thing? My chest tightened. Why was she asking me? I've talked to him a little, I replied. She didn't respond for several minutes. Then, he's been distant lately.
Of course he has.
Secrets have weight, and they leak into everything. He seems distracted, she added. I felt this wave of guilt wash over me. Because she doesn't know. She married him years after Daniel was born. She built her life thinking she knew the full story. And technically, she doesn't. I typed carefully. It's probably just stress. Which wasn't exactly a lie. But it wasn't the truth either. That weekend, I went over to my parents' house again.
My mom looked exhausted.
I told him this wouldn't stay buried forever, she said quietly. Apparently, my uncle has been pacing. Snapping at little things. Zoning out during conversations. He knows the clock is ticking now. Because Daniel isn't just a file in a drawer anymore. He's real. He has a face. He has questions. And he has access to the internet. Then something unexpected happened. Daniel sent me a photo. Not of himself. Of his son. A little boy. Big eyes. Messy hair. Huge grin. Underneath it he wrote, "This is why I'm searching. I don't want my kids growing up not knowing where they come from." That broke me. Because now it wasn't just about him. It was about the next generation. About inherited silence. About whether secrets should keep echoing through families. I stared at that little boy's face and thought, that's my cousin's child. He just doesn't know it. The pressure inside me started building. Every family group chat notification felt heavier. Every photo of my cousins felt wrong. They're living normal lives. Posting vacation pics. Complaining about work. Talking about their kids' soccer games. Meanwhile, their half-brother is out there wondering if he's unwanted. And I'm sitting in the middle of it. Then my uncle called again. This time his voice wasn't firm. It was tired. You told him I know, didn't you? Yes. He sighed.
Long.
Heavy. I just needed more time. Time for what? To feel ready?
To prepare?
Or to hope Daniel would disappear? He deserves the truth, I said quietly. That sentence hung between us.
He didn't argue. He didn't yell.
He just said something I didn't expect. I think about him more than you realize. That caught me off guard. Then why not talk to him? Silence. Then, because once I do, I can't pretend anymore. And there it was. Not cruelty. Not indifference.
Fear.
He built a life on top of that buried chapter. And he's terrified of what happens when it resurfaces. Later that night, Daniel sent one more message. I don't want to force anything. I just don't want to feel invisible. Invisible. That word stuck with me. Because that's what silence does. It erases people quietly. Not with cruelty, but with avoidance. And now I'm starting to realize something. This story isn't about scandal. It's about identity. It's about whether truth heals or destroys. And it's about whether keeping a secret is the same thing as protecting someone. The first real crack didn't come from Daniel. It came from inside the house. My aunt noticed it before anyone else did. She's the kind of woman who reads people without trying. 35 years of marriage teaches you that. One Sunday afternoon, she called me again.
Not casual this time.
Her voice was lower. Is there something your uncle isn't telling me? I froze. Because now the secret wasn't just about Daniel. It was about their marriage. I don't think that's my place, I said carefully. She didn't sound angry. She sounded scared. He's been waking up at night, she said. Just sitting in the living room. Staring. That image stuck with me. A man in his 70s. Sitting in the dark. Haunted by something he buried half a century ago. Guilt ages people differently. Meanwhile, Daniel asked for something specific. Not money. Not a meeting. Not a family reunion.
Just one thing.
Can you at least tell me if he's healthy? I just want to know what medical history I might be carrying. That request felt reasonable. Even responsible. And suddenly, the silence felt selfish. Because medical history isn't emotional. It's practical. If Daniel has kids, they deserve to know. If there's heart disease, cancer, anything genetic, information matters. I asked my uncle if I could share basic health details. He hesitated, then said yes. But when I asked him if he'd consider writing Daniel a short message, just a simple acknowledgement, he shut down.
I can't do that, he said. Why? I asked.
He looked exhausted. Because once I open that door, it won't close again. And that's when I realized. He's not afraid of Daniel. He's afraid of consequences. Of his wife finding out. Of his kids questioning him. Of the version of himself he built being shaken. 2 weeks later, the inevitable happened. My aunt found the adoption papers. Not because she was snooping. Because my uncle had taken them out of storage. He'd been staring at them. Old yellow documents. Hospital name. Birth date. Signature. She walked into the room and saw them on the table. And just like that, the secret didn't belong to just a few people anymore. She called my mom first.
Then she called me.
Her voice wasn't shaking. It was steady. Too steady. How long? She asked. No one knew how to answer that. Because the real answer was, since before you. That night, my uncle called me. For the first time, he sounded broken. She knows. Not angry. Not defensive. Just defeated. She said she doesn't know who I am anymore. That sentence hit hard. Because this isn't just about a son. It's about trust. About decades of shared life. And realizing there was a chapter missing. Daniel messaged again that same evening. If he doesn't want to meet, I understand. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if I mattered. That word again. Mattered. And now everything felt heavier. Because people weren't just looking for answers. They were looking for validation. I'm starting to realize something. Secrets don't explode. They erode. Slowly. Quietly. From the inside. And now the erosion has started. My aunt didn't scream. That's what made it worse. She didn't throw things. She didn't cry hysterically. She didn't pack a bag. She just sat at the kitchen table across from my uncle. 35 years of marriage between them. And one document in the middle. I need you to say it, she told him.
Her voice was calm. Too calm.
He stared at the table. Then finally,
yes.
I had a son. Not a mistake. Not a situation. A son. She nodded slowly. And you never thought I deserved to know? There it was. Not anger about the past. Anger about the silence. He tried explaining. He said he was 17. He said his parents handled it. He said he was ashamed. He said he didn't want to lose her. But here's the thing about secrets. They don't protect love.
They test it.
That night my mom called me. They're not okay, she said. Apparently my aunt asked one question that cut through everything. If he shows up at the door, would you turn him away? My uncle didn't answer right away. And sometimes hesitation is the loudest answer. Meanwhile, Daniel sent another message. Longer this time. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I don't want to ruin his life. I just want one conversation. Even 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's all he was asking for. 5 minutes to hear his father's voice. 5 minutes to ask why. 5 minutes to see if there was anything there. I stared at the message thinking, how do you deny someone 5 minutes? Family dinner that week fell off. My cousins sensed it. They didn't know details. But tension has a smell. You can feel it. One of them joked, why does it feel like everyone's hiding something? Nobody laughed. Later that night, my uncle called me again. I can't do this, he said. Not angry. Not defensive. Just tired. I built a life. I have kids. Grandkids. If this comes out... He didn't finish the sentence. But I knew what he meant. If this comes out, everything changes. And here's the truth. He's not wrong. It will change things. But silence already has. Then he said something I didn't expect. I looked at his picture. That caught me off guard. You did? Yes.
Pause.
He looks like me. His voice cracked slightly. Just slightly. And in that tiny crack was something human.
Not shame.
not ego. Recognition. Blood doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. Daniel sent one final message that week. If he doesn't want to talk, can you at least tell him I don't hate him? I had to put my phone down. Because that line destroys the entire narrative of threat. There's no revenge here. No lawsuit. No drama. Just a man trying not to carry bitterness. And a father afraid to open a door. 3 days later, something happened that none of us expected. My uncle collapsed. Not dramatic. Not life-threatening. But enough to land him in the hospital overnight.
Stress, the doctor said.
Blood pressure through the roof. My aunt stayed with him. Didn't leave his side. Because even with secrets, 35 years is still 35 years. When he got home, he called me. His voice sounded older. I don't want to die with this unfinished. That was the first time he didn't say later. The first time fear shifted direction. Not fear of exposure. Fear of regret. And that's where we are. The door isn't open yet, but it's unlocked. After the hospital scare, something in my uncle changed. Not dramatically. Not overnight. But the way he moved felt different.
Slower.
Like he was aware of time in a way he hadn't been before. My aunt didn't push him at first. She just watched. Observed. Waited. But one evening, about a week after he got home, she finally said it. You don't get to run forever. He didn't argue. Didn't defend himself. He just stared at the TV like he hadn't heard her. She turned it off. Silence filled the room. You think ignoring him protects us? She asked quietly. It doesn't. It just protects you. That one landed. Because she wasn't angry anymore. She was clear. And clarity is dangerous when you've been hiding. Meanwhile, Daniel sent another message.
Short.
Simple. I found his yearbook photo online. My heart skipped. Then another message. I just needed to see what he looked like back then. I showed that to my uncle. He didn't speak for a full minute. Then he whispered, almost to himself. I remember that jacket. And just like that, 50 years collapsed into one moment. He wasn't 17 anymore. He was 74. But suddenly, he looked 17 again.
Scared.
Cornered. Young. That night, my aunt sat beside him on the couch. Not across from him. Beside him. And she said something that changed the direction of everything. If he wants 5 minutes, give him 5 minutes. You don't have to promise anything else. 5 minutes. That number again. It keeps coming back. I asked him quietly, Are you afraid he'll hate you? He shook his head. I'm afraid he won't. That answer hit harder than anything else. Because hate would justify the distance. Hate would make it easier. But forgiveness? Forgiveness makes you face yourself. 2 days later, Daniel sent the message that finally broke the wall. My adoptive father passed away last year. I don't have many chances left to ask questions. That changed everything. Because now this wasn't abstract. It wasn't curiosity. It was urgency and grief. I told my uncle. He didn't respond right away. He just stood there in the kitchen, staring at nothing. Then he said quietly, I don't want to be another ghost in his life. That was it. That was the shift. Not pride. Not reputation.
Not shame.
Regret. That night, for the first time, my uncle didn't tell me to ignore him. He didn't say wait. He didn't say later. He just asked, what would I even say? And that's when I realized. The hardest part isn't the meeting. It's the first sentence. We decided on something simple. No public reunion. No dramatic reveal. No big family announcement. Just a phone call.
Private.
5 minutes. That's all. Daniel agreed immediately. He didn't ask for more. He didn't push. He just said, thank you. And somehow that one word carried 50 years of silence. The call is scheduled for Sunday. 3 days from now. Everyone feels it. My aunt is quiet but supportive. My mom is nervous. I feel like I'm standing in the middle of something historic and fragile at the same time. And my uncle? He hasn't slept properly in days. Not from fear anymore. From anticipation. Because sometimes closure isn't loud. Sometimes it's just two voices meeting across time. Sunday came too fast. My uncle barely touched his breakfast. He kept checking the clock like it was moving wrong. 1:52 p.m. 1:57 p.m. 1:59 p.m. The call was set for 2 o'clock. No Zoom. No FaceTime. Just a regular phone call. Simple. Old school. He said he didn't want the pressure of eye contact. My aunt sat beside him on the couch. Not speaking. Just there. Support without interference. I sat at the dining table across the room. Close enough. But not part of it. At exactly 2 p.m., my uncle's phone rang. Unknown number. The room went still. He stared at the screen for half a second longer than normal. Then he answered. Hello? There was a pause. Then a voice. Calm. Steady. A little deeper than expected. Hi. This is Daniel. Silence. Not awkward. Not hostile. Just heavy. My uncle swallowed. I know. Another pause. Then Daniel said something none of us expected. Thank you for taking the call. No accusation. No bitterness. Just gratitude. My uncle's shoulders shifted slightly, like he'd braced for impact, and it didn't come. The first 2 minutes were small talk. Weather. Where he lived. Work. Two strangers pretending they weren't connected by blood. Then Daniel asked it. Softly. Why? That's it. Just one word. Why? The room felt smaller. My uncle didn't answer immediately, and for a second I thought he might shut down. But he didn't. I was 17, he said quietly. I was scared. My parents handled everything. I didn't fight it. He stopped there. But Daniel didn't push. He just listened. I thought staying away would make things easier for you, my uncle added. That was honest. Maybe flawed, but honest. Daniel took a breath. It didn't, he said calmly. Not angry. Not cruel. Just factual. And that truth landed without yelling. Then something shifted. Daniel said, I don't need you to fix the past. That line changed the tone. Because suddenly this wasn't about blame. It was about presence. I just needed to hear your voice, Daniel continued. To know I wasn't nothing. Nothing. That word again. Invisible. Nothing. Ghost. My uncle's voice cracked for the first time. You were never nothing. Silence. Thick. Real. And for a second, I saw my uncle wipe his eyes. Very subtly. Like he hoped no one noticed. They talked about simple things after that. Health. Family background. Medical history. No dramatic reunion promises. No, let's meet tomorrow. Just grounding information. At minute 4.5, Daniel said something that stunned everyone. I don't hate you. My uncle closed his eyes. I don't deserve that, he whispered. Maybe not. But forgiveness doesn't always wait for deserving. At exactly 6 minutes, Daniel said, I don't want to overwhelm you. I meant what I said. 5 minutes was enough. But it wasn't 5 anymore. It was closer to 10. And neither of them noticed. Before hanging up, my uncle said something that would have been impossible 2 weeks ago. Maybe we can talk again sometime. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a plan. But it wasn't a goodbye either. Daniel replied, I'd like that. And then the call ended. Just like that. No music. No cinematic moment. Just a quiet click. The room stayed silent for a full 30 seconds. My aunt reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. He looked older, but lighter, like something that had been sitting on his chest for decades finally shifted. Was it what you expected? I asked gently. He shook his head. No. Better or worse? He stared at the blank TV screen. Harder. But there was something else in his expression. Relief. Not full peace, but a beginning. That night, Daniel sent one final message to me. Thank you for not ignoring me. And that's when I realized, sometimes being the bridge hurts, but it matters. The call was private. That was the agreement. No announcements. No social media. No extended family drama. Just 10 minutes between two men. But secrets don't stay contained once they've been spoken out loud. They shift energy. And people feel it. 3 days after the call, My cousin Megan showed up at my parents' house unannounced. She didn't look angry. She looked confused. "Why is Mom acting weird?" she asked. My stomach dropped. Because when moms act different, kids notice. Even grown ones. "She's been distant," Megan said. "Dad, too. They barely talk." I said nothing. And silence has weight. She studied my face for a second too long. "What's going on?" There it was. The moment we all knew would come. Because you can't adjust a 40-year marriage without creating visible cracks. Later that evening, my aunt made the decision herself. She told her kids. All of them. No dramatics. No blame-filled speech. Just truth. "Your father had a son before we met." That's how she said it. Before we met. Not during. Not while married. Before. That distinction mattered. But emotions don't care about timelines. Megan called me crying. Not screaming. Crying. "I feel like I don't know him," she said. And that sentence echoed something my aunt had said days earlier. She wasn't mad about the past. She was shaken by the silence. My cousin Eric reacted differently. He went quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that means he's calculating.
Processing.
Reevaluating childhood memories. Family vacations. Old photo albums. Every story Dad ever told. Now there was a missing chapter. And missing chapters change narratives. No one blamed Daniel. That's important. This wasn't some stranger showed up. This was blood. That makes it harder. Because anger needs a villain. And there wasn't one. Just a scared 17-year-old who made a choice. And a 74-year-old man who waited too long to face it. Then something unexpected happened. Megan asked a question none of us saw coming. "Has he met him yet?"
Not.
"Why didn't we know?"
Not.
"How could he?" Just. "Has he met him?" When my aunt told her about the phone call, Megan went quiet. And then she said softly, "That must have been hard." Not judgment. Empathy. For her father. And somehow, that softened everything. But not everyone reacted calmly. Eric called my uncle directly. "I wasn't there, but I heard about it later." "Why didn't you trust us?" Eric asked. That's what this is really about.
Trust.
My uncle didn't defend himself. He just said, "I was ashamed." There's something about hearing your father admit shame that shifts you. Parents aren't supposed to be fragile. They're supposed to be solid. And when that illusion cracks, you either pull away or you grow up fast. Daniel stayed quiet during all this. No new messages. No pushing. Almost like he understood the earthquake his presence created. He gave space. And that spoke volumes. A week later, something small but significant happened. My aunt asked to see his picture. Daniel's. I showed her. She studied it carefully. Longer than anyone else had. "He has your uncle's eyes," she said. Not bitter. Just observant. Then she handed the phone back and said something that surprised me. "He shouldn't be punished for being born." That sentence changed the emotional temperature of the entire family. Because once she said that, everyone else followed her lead. This isn't explosive drama. It's emotional restructuring. A family rebalancing itself. Slowly. Painfully. Honestly. The idea didn't come from my uncle. It didn't come from Daniel. It came from Megan. Which honestly shocked everyone. We were sitting at my aunt's house, just the immediate family. No tension in the air anymore. Just careful conversation. And Megan said it casually. "Well, are we ever going to meet him?" The room went still. Not hostile. Just aware. Because that question moves things forward. And once you move forward, you can't undo it. My uncle leaned back in his chair. Slowly. Like the air had thickened. "I don't know," he said honestly. Not defensive. Not dismissive. Just unsure. Megan looked at him, not angry, just steady. "Dad, he's not a secret anymore." That line hit different. Because she wasn't accusing him. She was giving him permission. That night, my uncle called me. "I think I need to see him," he said. Not we. Not the family. That mattered. Because this wasn't about optics anymore. It was personal. He didn't want a reunion party. No big emotional hug scene. Just neutral ground.
Quiet.
Simple. We suggested a diner halfway between their cities.
Public.
Low pressure. Normal. Daniel agreed immediately. He didn't ask to bring anyone. He didn't ask for guarantees. He just said, whatever makes him comfortable. That humility never changed. And honestly, that's probably why this didn't explode into chaos. The day of the meeting felt heavier than the phone call. Because you can hang up a phone. You can't unsee a face. We drove there together, my uncle and I. He was quieter than usual. Not panicking. Just reflective. At one point he said, what if he looks disappointed? That fear again. Not anger. Disappointment. I told him something simple. He showed up. That already says a lot. When we walked into the diner, he was already there. Booth in the back. Black coffee in front of him. And the second my uncle saw him, he stopped walking. Because blood doesn't whisper. It announces itself. Same posture. Same hands. Same jawline. 30 seconds passed before either of them moved. Daniel stood first. Not dramatic. Just respectful. Hi. That was it. No emotional explosion. No hug. Just,
Hi.
my uncle stepped forward. You look familiar. Daniel gave a small half-smile.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. It broke the tension. Just a little. They sat across from each other. And for the first time, they didn't need to imagine. They could see. It's strange watching two people study each other like mirrors. My uncle kept glancing at his hands. Daniel kept adjusting his watch. Same nervous tick. Neither of them said it, but they noticed. The conversation wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was human. They talked about Daniel's adoptive parents, his childhood, his career, his kids.
Yes. Kids.
Which means my uncle has grandchildren he never knew about. And that realization, that one sat heavy. You have a daughter? My uncle asked quietly. Daniel nodded. She's 12. 12. 12 years of birthdays. First days of school. Soccer games. Missed. Not by choice back then, but missed nonetheless. You could see the math happening behind my uncle's eyes. Years he can't reclaim. At one point Daniel asked gently, did you ever think about me? No accusation. Just curiosity. My uncle didn't lie. Yes.
Pause.
More than I admitted. That honesty built something.
Small.
But real. The meeting lasted almost 2 hours. Not 5 minutes. Not 10. 2 hours. They didn't solve 50 years. They didn't promise weekly calls. But when they stood up to leave, my uncle did something subtle. He put his hand on Daniel's shoulder. Not a full embrace. Not dramatic. Just contact. And that contact said, you're real. You exist. You're not a ghost. On the drive home, my uncle didn't speak for a long time. Then he finally said, he's not what I feared.
I didn't ask what that meant.
I knew. He feared anger, resentment, demand. Instead, he got steadiness. And maybe that scared him more. Because now there's no excuse to stay distant. Back at home, my aunt asked one question. How is he? My uncle paused. Then said, he's good. Not fine. Not okay.
Good.
And something in her shoulders relaxed. Because this was never about replacing anyone. It was about acknowledging someone. But here's where things get complicated. Because once you meet someone, they're no longer abstract. They become part of the emotional equation. And now the family has to decide. Is he visiting again? Is he meeting the cousins? Is he meeting the kids? Where does he fit? And fitting someone into an already built life. That's delicate. After the diner meeting, things didn't explode. They didn't magically blend either. They just shifted. Subtle. Like furniture being rearranged in a room you've lived in for decades. You know something's different, even if you can't name it yet. For the first week, no one pushed anything. No family dinner. No bring him over Sunday. Just processing. My uncle called Daniel twice that week. Short calls. 20 minutes. Normal conversations. Weather.
Work.
Random stories. But now there was something new in the tone. Comfort. Not full ease. But less edge. Less fear. Then Megan did something bold. She texted Daniel directly. Not dramatic. Not over the top. Just,
Hey.
I'm Megan. I figure we should probably talk at some point. Daniel showed the message to my uncle first. That told you everything about his character. He wasn't trying to build relationships behind anyone's back. He was careful, respectful, and my uncle just nodded. It's okay. That word again. Okay. Permission. Their first conversation lasted almost an hour. Megan told us later it wasn't weird, just emotional. She asked about his childhood. He asked about hers. And at some point she laughed and said, "So technically you're my big brother?" Daniel replied, "Technically."
Yeah.
That word, technically, kept things light. But underneath it, it meant something. Eric took longer. He's not cold. He's cautious. 2 weeks passed before he reached out. And when he did, he didn't sugarcoat it. "I'm not sure how I feel about all this," he said. Daniel didn't get defensive. He just answered, "That's fair." And that response? That's what changed Eric's tone. Because when someone doesn't demand acceptance, you're more willing to give it. Meanwhile, my aunt was navigating her own internal shift. One night she told my uncle, "I'm not threatened." That surprised him. She continued, "I'm just adjusting." That's what this whole story is. Adjustment. Not betrayal. Not destruction. Adjustment. Then came the real test. Thanksgiving. 3 weeks away. The first holiday since the truth came out. No one said it out loud. But everyone was thinking it. Does he get invited? And if he does, what does that make this family now? The suggestion came quietly. From my aunt. Maybe we should ask him. Not because she felt obligated, but because excluding him would send a message. And she wasn't that kind of person. My uncle hesitated. Not because he didn't want him there, but because he was scared of forcing something too fast. "What if it's awkward?" he asked. My aunt gave him a look. "It will be." And she wasn't wrong. Growth is awkward. Blended families are awkward. Healing is awkward. But avoiding it? That's worse. So my uncle called Daniel. Not to announce.
To ask.
"Would you feel comfortable coming for Thanksgiving?" There was a pause. A real one. Then Daniel said something honest. "I don't want to disrupt anything." That word again. Disrupt. Like he still saw himself as an intruder. My uncle responded differently this time. "You wouldn't be." That wasn't guilt. That wasn't obligation. That was acceptance forming.
Slow.
But forming. Daniel didn't immediately say yes. He said he needed to think. Which made sense. Walking into a house full of people connected by shared history you weren't part of? That's intimidating. 3 days later he texted, "If the invitation still stands, I'll come." And just like that, the next chapter began. But here's what nobody says about moments like this. Inviting someone in is easy. Integrating them? That's layered. Because Thanksgiving isn't just turkey and pie. It's inside jokes. It's childhood stories. It's remember when. And Daniel doesn't have those memories. So, where does he sit in conversations built before he existed in the room? That's what part 11 is about. Because Thanksgiving is coming. And it's going to test everything. Thanksgiving morning felt different. Not tense. Just aware. Like everyone woke up knowing this wasn't a normal year. The house smelled like turkey and cinnamon. My aunt was moving around the kitchen like she always does. Focused. Organized. Steady. But she kept checking the clock. Not obsessively. Just enough to show she was thinking about it. About him. Megan was helping with the table. Eric was pretending not to care. But he had already asked twice. What time is he coming? No one said his name. Not because it was forbidden, but because it still felt new in their mouths. Daniel. My uncle didn't talk much that morning. He kept busy. Set up chairs. Moved plates. Adjusted things that didn't need adjusting. Nervous energy. But not fear. Something closer to anticipation. Daniel said he'd arrive around 2 p.m. At 1:57, my uncle stepped outside. Not to hide, just to be there first. And when Daniel's car pulled up, everything slowed down. Not dramatically, just internally. He stepped out of the car holding a pie. Store-bought, which somehow made it more human, more normal, not trying too hard, just showing up. The first hug happened outside.
Quick.
One arm. Masculine. Careful. But it happened. That mattered. When they walked in together, the room shifted. Not in a bad way. Just in a this is real now way. My aunt stepped forward first. She didn't overthink it. She smiled. Hi, Daniel. And he smiled back. Thank you for having me. No edge. No weirdness. Just respect. Megan hugged him. Fully. No hesitation. And that broke something open. Because once one person acts natural, it gives everyone else permission to breathe. Eric shook his hand. Firm.
Direct.
I'm Eric. Daniel nodded.
Yeah.
I know. They both laughed. That small laugh. That was progress. Dinner wasn't perfect. But it wasn't a disaster. There were pauses. Moments where conversations drifted into old stories Daniel wasn't part of.
And you could see it.
That half second where he smiled, but didn't have a memory to add. And here's what surprised me. My uncle noticed. He'd stop mid-story and say, Actually, Daniel, you'd appreciate this. And he'd loop him in. Not artificially. Naturally. Like he was building space on purpose. That wasn't guilt. That was effort. Then something unexpected happened. Halfway through dinner, Daniel pulled out his phone. I brought pictures, he said quietly, of his kids. He passed the phone to my aunt first. 2 smiling faces. A girl with curly hair. A little boy missing his front tooth. My aunt's expression changed instantly. Not polite interest. Real warmth. They're beautiful, she said. And she meant it. When the phone reached my uncle, he stared longer. Not at the screen. At the reality. Grandkids. 12 years old. 7 years old. Living entire lives without him knowing. You could see it hit him. But instead of shutting down, he asked questions. What's she into? Does he play sports? What are they like? And Daniel answered everything. Softly. Patiently. Without expectation. At one point Megan said something simple. We should all meet them sometime. The room didn't freeze this time. No one panicked. Because the idea didn't feel invasive anymore. It felt possible. After dinner, they all ended up in the living room. Football on. Dessert plates half finished. Normal Thanksgiving noise. And Daniel was sitting on the couch between Eric and my uncle. Like it had always been that way. Not forced. Just unfolding. Later that night, after Daniel left, no one rushed to dissect it. There was no dramatic family meeting. No vote. Just quiet reflection. Finally, my aunt said, that felt right. And no one disagreed. But here's the thing about emotional slow burn stories. The real shift isn't loud. It's subtle. It's when someone stops feeling like a guest and starts feeling like part of the room. And that's exactly what happened. Not instantly, not magically, but undeniably. However, there's still something unresolved. Because acceptance inside the house is one thing. But Daniel still carries 50 years of questions. About identity. About abandonment. About what could have been. And my uncle? He's starting to feel the weight of lost time. After Thanksgiving, something changed. Not outwardly, but internally. Daniel wasn't the secret anymore. He wasn't the situation. He was just Daniel. And that shift matters more than people realize. The weeks after the holiday were steady. Phone calls became normal. Text didn't feel formal anymore. Instead of, hope I'm not bothering you, it became, hey, what are you up to? Small difference. Huge meaning. Then one night, my uncle asked Daniel to grab coffee. Just the 2 of them. No family. No buffer. Just father and son. That word still felt strange. But they didn't say it out loud. They met at a quiet diner off the highway. The kind with chipped mugs and waitresses who call everyone Han. They talked about basic stuff at first.
Work.
Traffic. Random memories. Then the silence came. The real one. And my uncle finally said what had been sitting in his chest for months. I can't fix the past. Daniel didn't look surprised. He just nodded. I know. No blame. No bitterness in his tone. Just truth. Then my uncle said something harder. But I don't want to waste what's left. That's when it hit. This wasn't about repairing something broken. It was about building something new. From scratch. At 50 years old. And that takes humility. Daniel leaned back in his chair. You don't owe me anything, he said. And maybe that's what finally allowed my uncle to breathe. Because guilt builds walls. But responsibility? That builds bridges. Over the next few months, integration became natural. Daniel came by for random Sunday dinners. Not every week. Not forced. Just sometimes. The kids met him too. That was another layer. Watching my uncle meet his grandkids for the first time. The little boy didn't understand the history. He just saw an older man smiling at him. And kids don't care about timelines. They care about presence. That was a gift. A second chance to show up. But here's the honest part. Lost time never fully disappears. There are still moments. Like when someone brings up childhood memories, and Daniel doesn't have those stories. Or when my uncle realizes he missed first steps. First games. First heartbreaks. That weight stays. It doesn't crush him, but it humbles him. My aunt adjusted beautifully. Not because she had to,
but because she chose to.
She never treated Daniel like competition. She treated him like an addition. And that's rare. Very rare. Megan and Daniel developed a real sibling rhythm.
Teasing.
Texting. Memes. Eric? He respects him now. Not out of obligation, but because Daniel never tried to claim space. He earned it quietly. One evening months later, we were all sitting in the backyard. Nothing special. Just summer air and quiet conversation. Daniel was laughing at something my uncle said. And for the first time, the laughter sounded easy. Uncomplicated.
Real.
And I realized something. Families don't break when truth comes out. They break when truth stays buried. This family didn't break. It expanded. Slowly. Awkwardly. Imperfectly. But it expanded. The past didn't rewrite itself. There was no dramatic forgiveness speech. No cinematic moment. Just steady effort. Consistency. Showing up. And that's what healing actually looks like. Not fireworks. Just presence. One day, Daniel said something simple. I'm glad I sent that message. And my uncle replied, I'm glad you did too. That's it. That's the ending. Not because everything is perfect, but because everyone chose forward. And sometimes, that's enough.